Shavuot, Day 2 Festival. Shavuot, Day 2, Festival of Weeks. Shavuot second day, Sivan 7, Torah Devarim, Deuteronomy, Words, 14:22, 16:17, Bimidbar, Numbers, 28:26-31, Haftarah Havakuk, Habakkuk, 3:1-19, Ruth, 1:1-22, Pirit Hadashah Acts 2:1-13, Torah Devarim, Deuteronomy, Words, 14:22, 16:17, 14:22. Every year you must take 1/10 of everything your seed produces in the field, and eat it in the presence of Adonai your God. In the place where he chooses to have his name live you will eat the 10th of your grain, new wine and olive oil, and the firstborn of your cattle and sheep, so that you will learn to fear Adonai your God always. But if the distance is too great for you, so that you are unable to transport it, because the place where Adonai chooses to put his name is too far away from you, then, when Adonai your God prospers you, you are to convert it into money, take the money with you, go to the place which Adonai your God will choose, and exchange the money for anything you want: cattle, sheep, wine, other intoxicating liquor, or anything you please, and you are to eat there in the presence of Adonai your God, and enjoy yourselves, you and your household. But don't neglect the Levi staying with you, because he has no share or inheritance like yours. At the end of every 3 years you are to take all the tenths of your produce from that year and store it in your towns. Then the Levi, because he has no share or inheritance like yours, along with the foreigner, the orphan and the widow living in your towns, will come. Eat and be satisfied, so that Adonai your God will bless you in everything your hands produce. 15:1. At the end of every 7 years you are to have a Shemitah. Here is how the Shemitah is to be done. Every creditor is to give up what he has loaned to his fellow member of the community. He is not to force his neighbor or relative to repay it. Because Adonai's time of remission has been proclaimed, you may demand that a foreigner repay his debt, but you are to release your claim on whatever your brother owes you. In spite of this, there will be no one needy among you, because Adonai will certainly bless you in the land which Adonai your God is giving you as an inheritance to possess, if only you will listen carefully to what Adonai your God says and take care to obey all these mitzvot I am giving you today. Yes, Adonai your God will bless you, as he promised you. You will lend money to many nations without having to borrow, and you will rule over many nations without their ruling over you. If someone among you is needy, one of your brothers, in any of your towns in your land which Adonai your God is giving you, you are not to harden your heart or shut your hand from giving to your needed brother. No, you must open your hand to him and lend him enough to meet his need and enable him to obtain what he wants. Guard yourself against allowing your heart to entertain the mean-spirited thought that because the 7th year, the year of Shemitah, is at hand, you will be stingy toward your needed brother and not give him anything, for then he may cry out to Adonai against you, and it will be your sin. Rather, you must give to him, and you are not to be grudging when you give to him. If you do this, Adonai your God will bless you in all your work, in everything you undertake, for there will always be poor people in the land. That is why I am giving you this order. You must open your hand to your poor and needy brother in your land. If your kinsman, a Hebrew man or woman, is sold to you, he is to serve you for 6 years, but in the 7th year, you are to set him free. Moreover, when you set him free, don't let him leave empty-handed, but supply him generously from your flock, threshing floor and winepress. From what Adonai your God has blessed you with, you are to give to him. Remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and Adonai your God redeemed you. That is why I am giving you this order today. But if he says to you, I don't want to leave you, because he loves you and your household, and because his life with you is a good one, then take an awl, and pierce his ear through, right into the door, and he will be your slave forever. Do the same with your female slave. Don't resent it when you set him free, since during his 6 years of service he has been worth twice as much as a hired employee. Then Adonai your God will bless you in everything you do. All the firstborn males in your herd of cattle and in your flock you are to set aside for Adonai your God. You are not to do any work with a firstborn from your herd or shear a firstborn sheep. Each year you and your household are to eat it in the presence of Adonai your God in the place which Adonai will choose. But if it is a defect, is lame or blind, or has some other kind of fault, you are not to sacrifice it to Adonai your God. Rather, eat it on your own property. The unclean and the clean alike may eat it, like the gazelle or the deer. Just don't eat its blood, but pour it out on the ground like water. 16:1. Observe the month of Aviv, and keep Pesach to Adonai your God, for in the month of Aviv, Adonai your God brought you out of Egypt at night. You are to sacrifice the Pesach offering from flock and herd to Adonai your God in the place where Adonai will choose to have his name live. You are not to eat any hametz with it. For 7 days you are to eat with it matzah, the bread of affliction, for you came out of the land of Egypt in haste. Thus you will remember the day you left the land of Egypt as long as you live. No leaven is to be seen with you anywhere in your territory for 7 days. None of the meat from your sacrifice on the first day in the evening is to remain all night until morning. You may not sacrifice the Pesach offering in just any of the towns that Adonai your God is giving you. But at the place where Adonai your God will choose to have his name live, there is where you are to sacrifice the Pesach offering, in the evening, when the sun sets. At the time of year that you came out of Egypt, you are to roast it and eat it in the place Adonai your God will choose. In the morning you will return and go to your tents. For 6 days you are to eat matzah. On the 7th day there is to be a festive assembly for Adonai your God. Do not do any kind of work. You are to count 7 weeks. You are to begin counting 7 weeks from the time you first put your sickle to the standing grain. You are to observe the festival of Shavuot, weeks, for Adonai your God with a voluntary offering, which you are to give in accordance with the degree to which Adonai your God has prospered you. You are to rejoice in the presence of Adonai your God, you, your sons and daughters, your male and female slaves, the Levim living in your towns, and the foreigners, orphans and widows living among you in the place where Adonai your God will choose to have his name live. Remember that you were a slave in Egypt, then you will keep and obey these laws. Mafti, 13. You are to keep the festival of Sukkot for 7 days after you have gathered the produce of your threshing floor and winepress. Rejoice at your festival, you, your sons and daughters, your male and female slaves, the Levim, and the foreigners, orphans and widows living among you. 7 days you are to keep the festival for Adonai your God in the place Adonai your God will choose, because Adonai your God will bless you in all your crops and in all your work. So you are to be full of joy. 3 times a year all your men are to appear in the presence of Adonai your God in the place which he will choose at the festival of Matzah, at the festival of Shavuot and at the festival of Sukkot. They are not to show up before Adonai empty-handed, but every man is to give what he can, in accordance with the blessing Adonai your God has given you. Numbers 28:26. On the day of the first fruits, when you bring a new grain offering to Adonai in your feast of Shavuot, you are to have a holy convocation. Do not do any kind of ordinary work, but present a burnt offering as a fragrant aroma for Adonai, consisting of 2 young bulls, 1 ram, 7 male lambs in their first year, and a grain offering fine flour mixed with olive oil. 6 quarts for each bull, 4 quarts for the 1 ram, and 2 quarts for each of the 7 lambs plus a male goat to make atonement for you. You are to offer these in addition to the regular burnt offering and its grain offering. They are to be without defect for you, with their drink offerings. Haftarah Havakuk, Habakkuk, 3:1-19. Ruth, 1:1 for 22, 3:1. This is a prayer of Havakuk the prophet, on musical instruments called Shijinot. Adonai, I have heard the report about you. Adonai, I am awed by your deeds. Bring your work to life in our own age, make it known in our own time, but in anger, remember compassion. God comes from Teman, the Holy One from Mount Peran Selah. His splendor covers the sky, and his praise fills the earth. His brightness is like the sun, rays come forth from his hand, that is where his power is concealed. Before him goes pestilence, and close behind, the plague. When he stands up, the earth shakes. When he looks, the nations tremble. The eternal mountains are smashed to pieces. The ancient hills sink down. The ancient paths are his. I saw trouble in the tents of Gushan, and the tent hangings shaking in the land of Midian. Adonai, is it against the rivers that your anger is inflamed? Is your fury directed at the sea? Is that why you ride on your horses, and drive your chariots to victory? You brandish your naked bow, and order it filled with arrows. Selah. You split the earth with rivers. The mountains see you and tremble. A torrent of water streams by. The deep thunders forth, as it raises enormous waves. The sun and moon stand still in the sky. At the light of your arrows speeding by, at the gleam of your glittering spear, in fury you stride across the land. In anger you trample the nations. You come out to save your people. To save your anointed one, you crush the head of the house of the wicked, uncovering its foundation all the way to the neck. With their own rod you pierce the head of their warriors, who come like a whirlwind to scatter us, who rejoice at the prospect of devouring the poor in secret. You tread down the sea with your horses, churning up the mighty waters. When I heard, my whole body trembled, my lips shook at the sound. Weakness overcame my limbs, my legs gave way beneath me, but I wait calmly for the day of trouble, when it comes upon our assailants. For even if the fig tree doesn't blossom, and no fruit is on the vines, even if the olive tree fails to produce, and the fields yield no food at all, even if the sheep vanish from the sheep pen, and there are no cows in the stalls, still, I will rejoice in Adonai, I will take joy in the God of my salvation. Elohim Adonai is my strength. He makes me swift and sure-footed as a deer, and enables me to stride over my high places, for the leader, with my stringed instruments. Ruth 1:1 Back in the days when the judges were judging, at a time when there was a famine in the land, a certain man from Bethlehem went to live in the territory of Moab. He, his wife and his 2 sons. The man's name was Elimelech, his wife's name was Naomi, and his 2 sons were named Machlon and Chilion. They were Ephraim from Bethlehem in Yehudah. They arrived in the plain of Moab and settled there. Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left, she and her 2 sons. They took wives for themselves from their women of Moab. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other was Ruth. They lived there for about 10 years. Then Machlon and Chilion died, both of them, and the woman was left with neither her 2 sons nor her husband, so she prepared to return with her daughters-in-law from the plain of Moab. For in the plain of Moab she had heard how Adonai had paid attention to his people by giving them food. She left the place where she was with her 2 daughters-in-law and took the road leading back to Yehudah. Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Each of you, go back to your mother's house. May Adonai show grace to you, as you did to those who died unto me. May Adonai grant you security in the home of a new husband." Then she kissed them, but they began weeping aloud. They said to her, "No, we want to return with you to your people." Naomi said, "Go back, my daughters. Why do you want to go with me? Do I still have sons in my womb who could become your husbands? Go back, my daughters, go your way, for I'm too old to have a husband. Even if I were to say, I still have hope, even if I had a husband tonight and bore sons, would you wait for them until they grew up? Would you refuse to marry, just for them? No, my daughters, on your behalf I feel very bitter that the hand of Adonai has gone out against me." Again they wept aloud. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth stuck with her. She said, "Look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her God. Go back, after your sister-in-law." But Ruth said, "Don't press me to leave you, and stop following you, for wherever you go, I will go, and wherever you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May Adonai bring terrible curses on me, and worse ones as well. If anything but death separates you and me." When Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more to her. So the 2 of them went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole city was stirred with excitement over them. The women asked, "Can this be Naomi?" "Don't call me Naomi, pleasant," she answered them. "Call me Mara, bitter, because Shaddai has made my life very bitter. I went out full, and Adonai has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? Adonai has testified against me, Shaddai has afflicted me." This is how Naomi returned, with Ruth the woman from Moab, her daughter-in-law, accompanying her from the plain of Moab. They arrived in Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. 2:1 Naomi had a relative on her husband's side, a prominent and wealthy member of Elimelech's clan, whose name was Boaz. Ruth the woman from Moab said to Naomi, "Let me go into the field and glean ears of grain behind anyone who will allow me to." She answered her, "Go, my daughter." So she set out, arrived at the field and gleaned behind the reapers. She happened to be in the part of the field that belonged to Boaz from Elimelech's clan. When Boaz arrived from Bethlehem, he said to the reapers, "Adonai be with you," and they answered him, "Adonai bless you." Then Boaz asked his servant supervising the reapers, "Whose girl is this?" The servant supervising the reapers answered, "She's a girl from Moab who returned with Naomi from the plain of Moab." She said, "Please, let me glean and gather what falls from the sheaves behind the reapers." So she went and has kept at it from morning until now, except for a little rest in the shelter. Boaz said to Ruth, "Did you hear that, my daughter? Don't go to glean in another field, don't leave this place, but stick here with my working girls. Keep your eyes on whichever field the reapers are working in, and follow the girls. I've ordered the young men not to bother you. Whenever you get thirsty, go and drink from the water jars the young men have filled." She fell on her face, prostrating herself, and said to him, "Why are you showing me such favor? Why are you paying attention to me? After all, I'm only a foreigner." Boaz answered her, "I've heard the whole story, everything you've done for your mother-in-law since your husband died, including how you left your father and mother and the land you were born in to come to a people about whom you knew nothing beforehand. May Adonai reward you for what you've done. May you be rewarded in full by Adonai the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come for refuge." She said, "My lord, I hope I continue pleasing you. You have comforted and encouraged me, even though I'm not one of your servants." When mealtime came, Boaz said to her, "Come here, have something to eat, and dip your piece of bread in the vinegar." She sat by the reapers, and they passed her some roasted grain. She ate till she was full, and she had some left over. When she got up to glean, Boaz ordered his young men, "Let her glean even among the sheaves themselves, without making her feel ashamed. In fact, pull some ears of grain out from the sheaves on purpose, leave them for her to glean, and don't rebuke her." So she gleaned in the field until evening. When she beat out what she had gathered, it came to about a bushel of barley. She picked it up and went back to the city. Her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned, and Ruth brought out and gave her what she had left over after eating her fill. Her mother-in-law asked her, "Where did you glean today? Where were you working? Blessed be the one who took such good care of you." She told her mother-in-law with whom she had been working. She said, "The name of the man with whom I was working today is Boaz." Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "May he be blessed by Adonai, who has never stopped showing grace, neither to the living nor to the dead." Naomi also told her, "The man is closely related to us, he's one of our redeeming kinsmen." But the woman from Moab said, "Moreover, he even said to me, 'Stay close to my young men until they've finished my harvest.'" Naomi said to Ruth her daughter-in-law, "It's good, my daughter, for you to keep going out with his girls, so that you won't encounter hostility in some other field." So she stayed close to Boaz's girls to glean, until the end of the barley and wheat harvests, and she lived with her mother-in-law. 3:1 Naomi her mother-in-law said to her, "My daughter, I should be seeking security for you, so that things will go well with you. Now there's Boaz our relative you were with his girls. He's going to be winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor, so babe, anoint yourself, put on your good clothes, and go down to the threshing floor. But don't reveal your presence to the man until he's finished eating and drinking. Then, when he lies down, take note of where he's lying. Later, go in, uncover his feet, and lie down. He will tell you what to do." She responded, "I will do everything you tell me." She went down to the threshing floor and did everything as her mother-in-law had instructed her. After Boaz was through eating and drinking and was feeling good, he went to lie down at the end of the pile of grain. She stole in, uncovered his feet and lay down. In the middle of the night the man was startled and turned over, and there was a woman lying at his feet. He asked, "Who are you?" And she answered, "I'm your handmaid Ruth. Spread your robe over your handmaid, because you are a redeeming kinsman." He said, "May Adonai bless you, my daughter. Your latest kindness is even greater than your first, in that you didn't go after the young men, neither the rich ones nor the poor. And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you everything you say, for all the city leaders among my people know that you are a woman of good character. Now, it is true that I am a redeeming kinsman. But there is a redeemer who is a closer relative than I am. Stay tonight. If, in the morning, he will redeem you, fine, let him redeem you. But if he doesn't want to redeem you, then, as Adonai lives, I will redeem you. Now, lie down until morning." She lay at his feet until morning. Then, before it was light enough that people could recognize each other, she got up, because he said, "No one should know that the woman came to the threshing floor." He also said, "Bring the shawl you are wearing, and take hold of it." She held it while he put 6 measures of barley into it. Then he went into the city. When she came to her mother-in-law, she asked, "Who are you, my daughter?" She told her everything the man had done for her. Then she added, "He gave me these 6 measures of barley, because he said to me, 'You shouldn't return to your mother-in-law with nothing.'" Naomi said, "My daughter, just stay where you are, until you learn how the matter comes out. For the man won't rest unless he resolves the matter today." 4:1 Meanwhile, Boaz had gone up to the gate and had sat down there. When the Redeemer of whom Boaz had spoken passed by, "Such and such," he said, "come over, and sit down." So he came over and sat down. He took 10 of the city's leaders and said, "Sit down here," and they sat down. Then he said to the redeeming kinsman, "The parcel of land which used to belong to our relative Elimelech is being offered for sale by Naomi, who has returned from the plain of Moab. I thought I should tell you about it and say, buy it in the presence of the people sitting here and in the presence of the leaders of my people. If you want to redeem it, redeem it. But if it is not to be redeemed, then tell me, so that I can know, because there is no one else in line to redeem it, and I'm after you." He said, "I want to redeem it." Then Boaz said, "The same day you buy the field from Naomi, you must also buy Ruth the woman from Moab, the wife of the deceased son, in order to raise up in the name of the deceased an heir for his property." The Redeemer said, "Then I can't redeem it for myself, because I might put my own inheritance at risk. You, take my right of redemption on yourself, because I can't redeem it. In the past, this is what was done in Israel to validate all transactions involving redemption and exchange. A man took off his shoe and gave it to the other party. This was the form of attestation in Israel. So the Redeemer said to Boaz, "Buy it for yourself," and took off his shoe. Boaz addressed the leaders and all the people, "You are witnesses today that I am purchasing from Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech and all that belonged to Kilion and Machlon. Also I am acquiring as my wife Ruth the woman from Moab, the wife of Machlon, in order to raise up in the name of the deceased an heir for his property, so that the name of the deceased will not be cut off from his kinsman and from the gate of his place. You are witnesses today." All the people at the gate and the leaders said, "We are witnesses. May Adonai make the woman who has come into your house like Rachel and like Leah, who between them built up the house of Israel, do worthy deeds in Ephrath, become renowned in Bethlehem. May your house, because you have the seed Adonai will give you from this young woman, become like the house of Peretz, whom Tamar bore to Yehudah." So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. He had sexual relations with her. Adonai enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. Then the women said to Naomi, "Blessed be Adonai, who today has provided your Redeemer. May his name be renowned in Israel. May he restore your life and provide for your old age, for your daughter-in-law, who loves you and is better to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him." Naomi took the child, laid it on her breast and became its nurse. The women who were her neighbors gave it a name. They said, "A son has been born to Naomi," and called it Oved. He was the father of Yishai, the father of David. Here is the genealogy of Peretz. Peretz was the father of Hezron. Hezron was the father of Ram. Ram was the father of Amminadab. Amminadab was the father of Nachshon. Nachshon was the father of Salmon. Salmon was the father of Boaz. Boaz was the father of Oved. Oved was the father of Yishai, and Yishai was the father of David. Pirit Hadashah Acts 2:1-13. Acts 2:1. The festival of Shavuot arrived, and the believers all gathered together in one place. Suddenly there came a sound from the sky like the roar of a violent wind, and it filled the whole house where they were sitting. Then they saw what looked like tongues of fire, which separated and came to rest on each one of them. They were all filled with the Ruach HaKodesh and began to talk in different languages, as the Spirit enabled them to speak. Now there were staying in Jerusalem religious Jews from every nation under heaven. When they heard this sound, a crowd gathered. They were confused, because each one heard the believer speaking in his own language. Totally amazed, they asked, "How is this possible? And all these people who are speaking from the Galilee, how is it that we hear them speaking in our native languages? We are Parthians, Medes, Elamites, residents of Mesopotamia, Yehudah, Cappadocia, Pontus, Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, the parts of Libya near Cyrene, visitors from Rome, Jews by birth and proselytes, Jews from Crete and from Arabia. How is it that we hear them speaking in our own languages about the great things God has done?" Amazed and confused, they all went on asking each other, "What can this mean?" But others made fun of them and said, "They just had too much wine."